abated since the day it opened. Many people are fed up at the way we have been governed over the last 4 years. It is time for a change, but the change must be for the better. Paul Borda has long been campaigning for public participation in planning.
The people of Gibraltar have a right to participate in planning decisions because they are the ones affected. There must be open tendering for land in a process that is clear and transparent from start to finish. The National Party has already committed itself to set up a commission of inquiry into allocation of lands by the GSLP to see whether the taxpayer could be better served any other way. The land of Gibraltar belongs to the people of Gibraltar and not to the GSLP. Environmental considerations have often been trampled upon in the past. A National Party government would ensure that a proper balance is found between progress and environmental considerations.
Liana Armstrong Emery has worked in the tourist industry for over 20 years and was a shop steward for the TGWU.
Tourism is an area which can generate economic growth for Gibraltar and employment opportunities for our people. Instead, over 190 jobs have been lost in the hotel trade over the last 4 years. Hotels have closed down and others have not opened. Gibraltar must be marketed as a conference centre and as a base for special interest holidays, taking advantage of our unique heritage, wildlife and location. The marketing of Gibraltar abroad must be improved in order to attract short and longer stay tourists so vital for our future economic development.
Damon Bocino was president of the Gibraltar Students Association for 2 years.
By investing in education, we are investing in our future. The National Party would seek to set up a university college in Gibraltar, using education as a way of generating wealth and employment. At the other end of the spectrum, nursery education must be properly regulated, and the question of special educational needs and class sizes must be tackled. The GMP has been at the forefront of calls for a graduate employment policy, which would aim to curb the existing brain drain of Gibraltarian graduates leaving Gibraltar because they cannot find a job. The National Party would also continue to develop and support the youth service in Gibraltar.
Annette Tunbridge led the Women's Association for over 2 years. She personifies the party's commitment on women's issues.
The National Party is the only party with 2 women in its lineup, which shows the importance of women's issues. I would urge the women of Gibraltar to vote for the GMP as the strongest defender of their rights. My colleagues and I pledge to tackle and correct the many areas in which women are discriminated against in our society. This includes issues like divorced women's pensions, Gibraltarian status, and a fairer system of child benefits. Realistic take-home wages for the lower paid must be a priority. There are also aspects of our health service which need to be addressed. The GMP would do this through a Charter of Patients' Rights, which would seek to put people first. There is a need for a centrally located hospital with easy access and plenty of parking. The release of MOD property could be looked at and earmarked for such a project. The GMP would restructure the health service and commission a report into manning levels. Long waiting lists must end. The clinical psychologist must be appointed. Preventative medicine must be adopted, such as breast screening, better family planning, and health education, available to all. A real opportunity must be given to disabled citizens to live and work in Gibraltar through training and decent allowances.
Elio Victor was Principal Youth and Careers Officer for many years, later becoming Head of Employment and Training. He has a diploma in Economics and Politics from the University of Oxford.
The National Party has the solutions to tackle the unemployment crisis head-on. We already pledged to tackle non-resident foreign labour because we cannot take on the unemployment problems of the Campo area. Illegal Spanish labour must also be rooted out through the expansion of the Labour Inspectorate. Jobs must be available for resident people regardless of their nationality, safeguarding at the same time the employment prospects of Gibraltarians and other British who do not live here. The National Party would also abolish or modify the 1st July law on this basis. The party has an economic strategy which is based on the latest theory upheld by the institutions of the European Union. This involves encouraging small businesses to develop by reducing costs, cutting bureaucracy and red tape. Above all, the National Party would set up a human resources unit which would promote multifaceted training and employment through massive investment in people.
Anthony Bajocchi served in the British Army for 18 years and then worked in the management team of a large multinational. He has received an appointment as a Justice of the Peace.
The National Party proposed sweeping reforms to the system of justice in Gibraltar. The GMP would ensure that resources are provided to the police and law courts to be able to carry out their tasks fairly and efficiently. The existing delays in the judicial system only serve to bring it into disrepute. The National Party would launch a study into joint payment and joint control of the police by Gibraltar and Britain, with operational matters remaining in the hands of the professionals. This would be headed by a Minister for Justice who would take political responsibility locally when anything goes wrong. The GNP would aim to send persistent or long-term offenders to prison in the United Kingdom. The workings of the jury system in Gibraltar also need to be looked into in consultation with the relevant representative bodies. The GMP would have no hesitation in supporting the law enforcement agencies and tackling this at its roots.
Stephen Linares was president of the Teachers Association and of the Gibraltar Trades Council. He was the main spokesman for the representative bodies in the campaign against the fast launch activity.
Everyone in Gibraltar has a right to be heard and a right to voice their opinions. The National Party is pledged to introduce a citizens' charter which would allow the people of Gibraltar a direct say in the way they are governed. This would include the appointment of an ombudsman, fixed monthly meetings of the House of Assembly, and a fairer system of voting. This is one of the reasons why I led the demonstration against the fast launch activity last year, because government was not listening to the people and because people were not being heard. My involvement in the fast launch demonstration was purely on social grounds. I could not allow the situation to continue. My colleague, Mr. Anthony Bajocchi, has explained the measures a GMP government would introduce to uphold law and order in Gibraltar. The scenes of the riots last July must never be repeated again.
Joseph Garcia has been party leader since July 1992. He has a doctorate in the modern political and constitutional development of Gibraltar and is a staunch defender of Gibraltar's rights in Europe.
We believe that we are going to this election with 8 candidates, with a strong team, with a strong manifesto, and we're hoping to win the election. If that doesn't happen, and if there is a hung parliament, as there was in 1969, with this same system of voting, and if the people of Gibraltar ask us to decide who the next government is going to be, we're going to have to think very carefully, because as you say, internally we have the problem of the GSLP, who have conducted the business of government in an intolerable manner internally, in the sense of very few meetings of the House of Assembly, a general lack of accountability and a general lack of openness. And yet on the other hand we have the worrying problem, the worrying doubt as to whether you can really trust the GSD on the question of Spain.
Vote Armstrong Emery, Bajocchi, Porda, Bocino, Garcia, Linares, Tunbridge, Victor. Use your 8 votes wisely. Vote for the National Party, the party you can trust.